You can never go wrong with most Sonic boss battles. A lot of them are engaging, while others make you question your life choices. But even the quote-unquote bad ones have their fair share of charm and whatnot. After almost 33 years of each and every game giving its take on battles with rivals or enemies, I've gotta ask which one is executed the best. While I've got nothing against the simple battles or the ones that are fan favorites among others, many of them simply just get the job done by being boss fights and nothing more. I'm not complaining though. The boss fights that really catch my attention are the ones that feel more personal against the two characters that are fighting, specifically the ones that have more meaning to them and aren't just simple fights. Examples being Sonic vs. Shadow in SA2, Metal Overlord in Heroes, can't believe I'm praising this game, and more recently the Mephiles battle in Shadow Generations. These listed battles have a lot more meaning when you find out more info behind them. It's not just your typical one-on-one boxing match, one of the characters actually wants to annihilate the person they're fighting. Now, a handful of the fights that do try to go for more usually feature other characters instead of the usual protagonist and antagonist. The Mephiles battle in particular described Mephiles' character in one of the best ways possible. But that was only between him and Shadow, meaning nobody else knows that Mephiles returned or even who he is. Not even Sonic, who did not let out a single sentence to him. No, that doesn't count. Is there a boss battle in the series that perfectly describes the rivalry between the main hero and villain of this franchise? You bet there is. That achievement goes to the Egg Dragoon boss fight in Sonic Unleashed. Something I often find hilarious is how people will claim that Eggman was written poorly or is not a creditable villain in Unleashed. Just a friendly reminder that they're referring to a game that has the best cutscene in the entire franchise that perfectly describes Sonic and Eggman's personality, which is a fact. Although given the sudden lack of Eggman shortly after the opening only sorta makes that statement understandable. I know it's kinda lame how the dude basically takes a backseat at several points throughout the game, but I wouldn't call it one of his worst usages in the series. That didn't come until Colors, Generations, and Lost World. A moment where he's at one of his best is this glorious boss before the final boss, including the two cutscenes prior to the fight. After completing Eggman Land, which was insane enough on its own, and getting the last Chaos Emerald in the final Gaia Temple, you've reached the end of your world adventure. Or that's what the game wants you to think. Eggman finally confronts Sonic several levels and cutscenes after the Egg Beetle reveal. With Dark Gaia being whole and complete thanks to his technology, he harnessed the dark energy and used it to build a machine. Dr. Wily much? This contraption is known as the Egg Dragoon, or the Ultra Hyper Prototype 1 as he calls it. Then he tears the floor to his own theme park to smithereens, leading our heroes to fall down several floors. After this raw-ass moment from the Werehog, the fight begins. At this point, it's your job to punch the green panels with the beast occasionally shooting missiles, ice bombs, and egg fighters at you. It starts out plain and simple, but after you get the health meter to reach the little line, Eggman says this.
No! The controls will respond!
Lovely, now he knows what playing 06 and Free Riders feels like. Since this is Sonic Unleashed, you'll of course be greeted with QuickTime events along with insane cinematics. It starts with Sonic getting a hold of the robot's limbs and swiftly dodging one of the missiles. Then he starts dealing proper damage to the mech by ripping off these two things in his front area. After that incredible sequence, the guy goes sicko mode and drills the floor again and has you falling, collecting rings, dodging more lasers, and landing on the convenient platform at the bottom. This dude has gone so crazy that even Sonic is telling him to calm the fuck down. That's how serious things have gotten and will continue to get. Fun fact, you can actually pull off the body slam move to have Sonic ascend down more quicker, which I always do. But yeah, there's no denying how intense this whole thing is. Plus, the atmosphere and music couldn't be more fitting. Oh yeah, did I mention that there's a time limit in this battle? Yeah, you'll eventually run out of platforms to land on whenever he drills through the floor. But of course it's impossible for that to happen since you're given 4 tries to activate the QTEs. But if this were to happen, then you'd be greeted by one of Eggman's most maniacal moments in this franchise's history.
There's nowhere left to run! It's time to end this, Sonic!
Not a lot of people talk about this moment for some reason, and it could have you wondering why doesn't Eggman just finish him off immediately, but I guess he still wants to give Sonic the chance of defeating him. Either that, or he just wants to soften him up before eventually meeting his demise. Speaking of which, I'm far from the only one to mention this, but I've gotta say it anyway. The QTEs throughout this battle, along with the cutscene prior, really do a good job of showing off what Sonic's Werehog form is capable of. The first phase is already quite phenomenal, with Sonic grabbing the machine, holding on for dear life until the machine shoots a drill missile, with Sonic dodging and letting it attack the machine itself. Then, like I said, he rips off 2 sections from the contraption limb from limb after slamming it on the ground for a bit. On top of all this, unlike a variety of other fights, what makes this one actually feel like a fight is that instead of his speed, Sonic uses the giant fists he was given thanks to the Egghead. The dude gave him this form, and now he's suffering the consequences. That's how strong Sonic has become here, but the second phase is even more phenomenal. We go through the same drill sequence again, having the player think it's just gonna be a repeat, but you'd be wrong. After that, Sonic then throws some punches until finally yeeting Eggman out of existence with his machine sinking down in flames. Hell to the yeah. And the S rank, assuming you got one, you're rewarded with is the cherry on top. Just all of these things are what make this battle between the two a lot more personal. Now, we've mostly been going off about Sonic's perspective during this battle, but I think it's time we addressed Eggman's perspective. It's literally hinted how he straight up wants to kill Sonic during this boss. Don't believe me? Well, I'll just let these two voice lines from him do the talking for me.
Stop a little concussion. Give up and die already. You were lucky, Sonic, but luck can't last forever.
Given how he just awakened Dark Gaia earlier and broken the Earth with the latter being undone quickly, it's understandable if he were at his breaking point here. Bro has officially had it and he wants the rodent torn apart and sent to hell. Also, am I the only one questioning where the hell Chip is during all of this? We do hear his voice during a few moments, so it's implied that he's still there with Sonic, but we don't see him. Anyway, I've only been talking about the HD version of this battle. How does Unleashed handle it? Well, to say the least, it works with what it's got, but it's far from being superior, that's for sure. All you do is just wail on the thing with Eggman still drilling the floor except with no time limit. Oh, and no QTEs or raw cinematics, since this is a 2000s Nintendo console after all. Well, at least it has a better take on Dark Gaia as opposed to this crap. Something else that's interesting about this boss is how this is the only time you fight Eggman as the Werehog. Usually the Eggman boss fights are defeated as normal Sonic, while Dark Gaia boss fights are fought as the Werehog. But for the last two bosses, the roles have reversed, with Werehog taking on Eggman and Hedgehog taking on the Dark Demon monster himself. Now that I've said all that, it has me wondering how this boss would have worked without the Werehog. Sure, Generations has that answered, but I'm talking about how it was built before. They would have most likely found a way to do it, but I feel like they would have had to remove the QTE segments, which are what make it as grand as it is. I mean, how can you make this boss better with just Sonic having the boost and homing attack standing on a huge platform? Answer? You can't. It's just a solid reminder that the Werehog is part of the reason why this game is so special. The Gens version is good on its own, but it just lacks the sense of urgency and insanity that the OG boss had. As for the Forces version, we're not even gonna talk about that shit. Even though as a kid I wasn't aware that the world had a huge hate boner for Unleashed during its launch, it's just good to know that we're in a place where a good chunk of the world is giving this game the respect it deserves. Now, for a good while, the only ways of seeing Unleash's glorious cinematics were with the Xbox 360 and PS3 versions. But then in 2021, the game got added to the Xbox Series X and S stores and pumped it up with widescreen, 60 FPS, and even better visuals. But it was only a matter of time before this masterpiece got its much desired PC port. Now let me tell you, with the release of Sonic Unleashed recompiled, people are now given the true definitive way of playing the most gorgeous looking Sonic game. Official or not, the team behind this project somehow made a great game even greater, and I couldn't be happier with it. Not only are we finally able to play the day stage of Jungle Joyride with a stable frame rate, but we get to experience the jaw-dropping cinematics at their peak. That includes the Egg Dragoon boss fight. Sonic fans are once again proving that they can be useful instead of having 1,000 discourses every day. Sonic Twitter. But back to the battle itself. As if Sonic wasn't OP enough, Eggman now gets his ass handed to him with his new extreme werewolf-esque form. This boss also has the honor of being something that the Western version did better than the Japanese version of the game. Given the dialogue that you hear in the Japanese dub, the voices literally make the scene feel so uncondescending, even though they're literally falling to the core of the earth.
下の方で光ってるとこが怪しいな。まずはそこを叩いてみるか。
地面が壊れた。
エッグマンのやつ無茶しやがる。
Obviously, no offense to any of the actors, but the English version really identifies the hatred these two have for each other during this moment. Man, Unleash is just such a cool game to play at any time. People can say it's overrated all they want, but at least this is one of those Sonic games where you can blatantly tell that the developers cared. The hearts and minds of folks over at Sonic Team were in the right place when adding in all the stuff we love about it. Will we ever get something like this in the franchise again, though? Well, I often like to hold on to hope and pray that we will, but if not, I'll always praise Unleash for giving us some of the best content in the franchise, period. Be sure to let me know what you think about the Egg Dragoon boss, or what you think is the best Sonic boss battle. Thank you guys for watching, comment, like, and subscribe if you enjoyed, and have a nice day.